That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's the wrap up with Lou.
That's right. That's right. Well, we'll get this out of the way. Maybe it'll spur a little topic. We don't have any guests tonight, but welcome to the wrap. I paid for it, so you don't have to. I'll tell you what I listened to that caught my ear. All right. So 9 December 2024, we had the Steve Dace show. Hour 2, he talked about what it takes to unseat a senator, talking about Jody Ernst, right? Jody Ernst has been what was standing against Pete Hegseth, as we remember, until more recently she softened that and said, she'd be looking forward to the process playing through, but, she had softened her position as far as it stood with him, right? Well, that came from a prompt, right? She received a lot of outside pressure. But before she did that, Steve Dace was talking on hour 2, because he's from Iowa and that's where she is, the sitting senator. He was talking about who has name ID to unseat her, who could primary against her. And how do you do that when you have a senator, an incumbent senator, when, everything's rigged for them with, money and pay like that. Plus also he talked about how, the Iowa Democrat Party is basically dead in Iowa. And do you revitalize them if you primary her and lose, right? Let's say, you get there to the general and you lose in the general and you've just basically resurrected what would be a dead party in Iowa, right? So is it really worth primarying her or not? So unbeknownst to us, hour 1 of the next day, after she had reversed her position, he talked about how he did 2 interviews and threw his name in the ring to primary her. And and he did talk about the 3 people who had name ID, and he did mention himself, that he was one of the people who could do it. And he did 3 interviews with 3 major media outlets, and she changed her tune. And he talked about how he has more interviews scheduled and he has some backing. And he may stay as a primary threat to her, because the whole point is, and if you go back and listen, right, hour 2 and then into hour 1 the next day, if you have limited time, the whole point being is, there's a mandate and people are sick of this. And, you're not just going to give us Pete Hegseth and then go screw us on the next 10 Republican votes.
That's right.
Right. She's the one who confirmed Lloyd Austin. She's the one who's all about, trans in the military and stuff. So he said, no, I'm going to keep the pressure on. I'm going to keep the threat live. She's not going to be able to go back and rest on her heels and screw us on the next 10 votes. So that was an interesting conversation. If you have time, go ahead and listen to that. If you didn't, that's what it was. With a little more details. All right, Human Defense Wednesday with Jack Pasobic. He had a takedown of Christopher Wray and all his mishandlings in the FBI. It was interesting. They went through a lot of that. He resigned, and I like how he gave him a parting shot. Preserve your documents, Christopher Wray.
Yeah.
This is my favorite parting shot. If you're over there listening to, that's Steve Bannon says that all the time, right? That's where these guys get that,
Mm-hmm.
But every time they say it, it's awesome, right? And now the last thing we had, were we able to do this or not? Were we able to do? We were okay. That's no problem. Hey, so what you guys have to know is Andy. If you didn't know this, background baseball. Andy, not only is Andy the star, but he produces. I have no idea how to do any of this. None of this. And I spring on him last minute crap all the time. So I was like, hey, Andy, it'd be really cool if people heard this for themselves. And he was like, yeah, that would have been cool to know 3 days ago.
Yeah, we tried. I failed miserably. I just didn't have enough time before showtime to get it up. That's all.
It's the good idea fairy, right? It just sits up here because I don't know how to do. I don't know what goes into it. It'd be really cool if you work 9 hours ahead of time and because I don't know. I'm just like, hey, why don't you do this?
It'd be really cool. Just take out your pecker and smash it in a rack pan on a ship. Why don't you do that? That would be really cool.
Right?
That's about the equivalent of what Lou does to me every show.
It's terrible.
Just about.
It's terrible. Because I don't, the truth is I don't really know. And I have to get better at that. But anyway, last thing I had was Barry Weiss, right? Okay. You guys don't remember her. She breaks a lot of good stories. Right down the middle, reporter, good to go. She has a podcast called Honestly, and she talked to Mike Andreessen a couple days ago on why he endorsed Trump. And it's right about the 43-minute mark. You have to hear it yourself. You just have to. Right around the 43-minute mark. Andy heard it. He'll testify after. But Mark says something that should be front page everywhere, right? He says they went to the Biden administration. They had a big meeting. He said, Biden's this elder statesman, decades of experience, but he's got a young radical staff doing wild and crazy things. He said 3 things forced him to endorse Trump. One was the unrealized capital gains tax. He says that was serious. Even though they sit there and say in the media that wasn't, we had a meeting, that was serious. He said that would have destroyed small business everywhere. He said the second thing when they were meeting with the Biden admin was AI. And then he said the third thing was cryptocurrency. He said cryptocurrency, they hate it and they tried to destroy it. And his business was on the receiving end of that, and it was miserable. He said, so that right there was a strike. He said, but what AI, when he walked out after they talked about AI, he was horrified and he knew he had to endorse Trump. And what he said about AI was, they told him basically, and everyone in this room, don't even invest in AI startups. Don't even sniff in that direction. We're not going to allow it to happen. There's only going to be 2 or 3 companies we allow to have AI. They're going to be tightly controlled by us. They're going to do what we tell them. We're going to protect them. No competition. Don't even do it. We're not going to allow it. He said, he spoke up and said, well, the math, I don't know how you're going to do that. The math is being taught in universities all over. How are you going to do that? He said they looked at him and said, during the Cold War, we classified entire tracks of physics and took them out of the research community. They just went dark. He said, if we decide that that's what needs to be done for AI, we'll remove the base math. And he said, holy crap, I just learned 2 things. You people don't belong having any power. And they just classified entire tracks of physics that nobody's allowed to look at.
That's so scary. I mean, it's to everybody that's out there saying to all these conspiracy, quote unquote nuts, maybe they're not so crazy, huh?
Isn't that insane? And you heard it yourself. So like I said, if you head over to Barry Weiss, honestly, her interview with Mike Andreessen, it's about 3 or 4 days ago. You can hear it from him. He'll tell you what was said in the meeting, paraphrasing some of it, of course. But yeah, not going to allow AI. And that's a wrap, folks.